Welcome to my U.1 essay question review. Some of you sent me messages that you had questions, and so here's my answers, or here's a review way, a way of for you to get some of those answers. Blah 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 blah. Hey, welcome to U.1 essay question review. Hopefully you find this helpful. So let's get started. Question number 1. What are two different worldviews a person can have if they admit they've got a natural desire for something that never seems to be satisfied by the world? We talked about this in one of our lectures, actually, like two of our lectures, that if you recognize that the things that you desire ultimately can't satisfy you, you approach the world in one of two ways. So look at worldview 1. We talked about gifts and appetizers. Both of them are just images to help us think through this. Both gifts and appetizers are pointing towards something else. Gifts are not meant to be the thing that we love. We're meant to love the giver of gifts, right? So gifts imply a giver. Same thing with appetizers. Appetizers are not meant to be indulged on. Appetizers are meant to get us hungry for a main course. But you can fall in love with gifts, and you can eat and be stuffed with appetizers. And when you do that, you miss out on something else. Okay. Next, this worldview of seeing everything as a gift, or kind of like an appetizer, means that everything can be enjoyed because you know that there's something more coming. That also means that even if you don't get everything you want, even if you've got unfulfilled desires, you know that there's something more coming that's beyond this world. It's beyond the gift. It's the giver. It's beyond the appetizer. It's the meal. Lastly, this worldview that reveals a giver or a main course makes you grateful. It gives you a sense of gratitude. Everything from trees to sunsets to people to iPads, everything is a gift, an opportunity to be grateful because it's coming from someone more than nature. It's coming from a giver of all gifts. Okay, that's one worldview. Second worldview, nope, this is it. It's limited, and this is all there is. This worldview is there is no giver and there is no main course. This is all that there is. This world and all the good things that we see around us and all of our desires, that's all there is. So means this: if your desires are unsatisfied, it means you're going to miss out. If there's nothing more to our desires than trying to get them filled, then we're going to end up being someone who's highly competitive, because the good things in this world, they're limited. There's only so much of it to go around. And so if you don't get them first, fill in the gap: money, fame, power, fun, someone else is. And so you live in this world of either competing and trying to get yourself filled or stuffed by this world, or you just give up and you lose motivation. This worldview implies that nothing is a gift, and so there are only things in this world to get, to take. There's nothing more than this world, and so there's no real deep gratitude. You might be grateful for other people and how they can fulfill your desires, getting you stuff, loving you, but those desires are never perfectly fulfilled. And so you're left with a sense of, is this all there is? And we end up chasing in this worldview. We pursue things that'll never ultimately satisfy us. Okay, so two worldviews. Question number 2, explain the key components for the argument for desire and how they might be evidence that points to God. This is definitely in your notes, and we talk about it through the words premises. Premise 1, every natural desire corresponds to some real object that can satisfy that desire. Every desire in us corresponds to some desire that satisfies it. Every natural desire in us corresponds to some real object that can satisfy us. Premise 2, but in this world, there exists a desire which nothing in time, nothing on earth, and no creature can satisfy. Conclusion, therefore, there must exist something more than time, earth, creatures, which can satisfy this desire. And this something is what people call God, or life with God forever. Okay, so this conclusion leads you into a hopeful or an unhopeful view of life, which is part of question number 1. The hopeful view of life is this: I've got desires nothing in the natural world is going to fulfill. So there's something more than nature, something more than the world around me. something supernatural. Or this natural world is like a joke that it presents me all these great things. It gets me hoping and believing and dreaming and loving, and then it's going to fade away, and then the curtains will close and it's over. But the evidence points us towards the strong possibility that there's more to life than this. Question number 3. 4 characteristics. This, for some of you couldn't find it, this comes from the homework assignment that I had issued. The homework assignment is this very same question. Okay. It came out of your textbook. It's still in your textbook. What are 4 characteristics of the knowledge of God through reason? Okay. 1, all knowledge that we get of God through reason, not through faith, through reason, is mediated. That means all of the knowledge we have about God is coming through some other thing, right? Sunsets, trees, experiences of love, our own desires. They're all like the middle thing between us and God that we experience. They're like the telephone. They're like the TV signal. The word mediated means that it's coming through some other thing. It's not coming directly from God. It's coming through some other thing. If we have knowledge from God directly from God, that's called revelation. And that's the supernatural stuff that we'll get to later. Next is natural. All knowledge of God through reason is natural knowledge. It's things that we could understand and deduce through human reason alone. Another characteristic is universal. Anything that my reason can know about God is also knowable to every other person who has reason. It's accessible to everybody. Fourthly, there are 2 things. That's why some of you have a question why I have listed 4 characteristics and not 5. The last one in your book are kind of combined. All knowledge of God through reason is certain and easy to attain. That means that God, through creation, clearly leads people to a creator. Doesn't mean that he explains very much of himself or what kind of creator he is in great detail. But if I found a book, it's certain and easy knowledge for me to know that there's an author behind the book. Okay. All right. Number 4. How is the process of learning similar to the process of how's the process of learning to read a book similar to reading creation? And how can they both be stalled? Okay. There's a lot of ways that you can answer this. Here's how I started talking about it. I talked about there are stages of reading when you're a kid that you go through, right? There's stages of reading, but reading, especially for children, is more caught than taught, which means that kids have to be encouraged and read to. They have to be around people who enjoy it, and when they're around people who enjoy it, they will kind of be open to enjoying it too. But this kind of reading, just like with kids reading a book of pictures, they can get the pictures wrong. I mean, it's easy for them to get the pictures, right? They can come up with all kinds of ideas of what those pictures mean, but they could also easily get those pictures wrong. And that's why creation, very much like reading a book for children, children's books are mostly pictures. And as they get a little bit older, there's more words. And then eventually, it's not even about how many words, it's about the story, the complexity of the story. That's what pulls us in. It's a good story. And if the story is good enough, it doesn't matter if there aren't pictures. If the story is good enough, it doesn't matter if there's lots of words. We'll be drawn in. Very much like reading in creation, right? There are stages in which we kind of develop a sense of how to understand the world around us. St. Augustine said, what did he say? God writes meaning through words, deeds, and actions in history. And so there's a process there in how we learn to read what God writes. Next, we kind of begin to see very much as we go through this process of being around people who are open to experiencing God in the world around them. We kind of catch that way of reading into the world. We begin to talk about our lives as if it's a story, right? We even talk about billions of lives on planet Earth, and we call it his story, right? A story that isn't about any one person. It's not just about all of us. It seems to be about something bigger, right? History. And then lastly, we begin to see how there might be a plot in our own lives, in the world around us, And even if all we have is a setting, everything begins to reveal the author, right? But again, this is not perfect. Um, it's not a perfect approach. Okay, that's it.